So we're here today to talk about Andy Dalton for Cowboys fans. Something that I typically don't do, but we'll get into this today.
Second out and goal. Dixon out of the backfield. Has some daylight. Hurdles to the end zone. In for the score, and he took a lick from Miles Jack, but he hung on.
Welcome to New Stripe City, a YouTube channel for diehard Bengals fans. I'm your host, Ace Boogie, and today we're here to talk about Andy Dalton. Now, I had a friend of mine who is one of my good friends. He's a Cowboys fan. He wanted to know exactly what was going on. So obviously, Dak Prescott goes down with an ankle injury. So prayers to Dak, hope that he has a speedy recovery. But this was something that we knew was a possibility of happening this season when the Bengals went ahead and cut Andy Dalton. They went their separate ways, went ahead and drafted Joe Burrow. And then we all saw him go to the Dallas Cowboys. Now, this wasn't a surprise because he is from Katy, Texas. He grew up there. Not a surprise that he went there. A lot of Bengals fans who like Dalton wanted him to get a shot with the Dallas Cowboys. No shot at Dak, but they wanted to get him into a scene and around a team that was different out of circumstances based on several things that have gone on in Cincinnati. Now, me, on the other hand, I've had different views on Andy Dalton. I feel like I've been equal on both sides. I've supported him when he was good, but I've also been critical of him as well. So that has started all the way from 2011 and really up until now. I honestly didn't think that I would still be talking and commentating on Andy Dalton this soon, but as it turns out, it seems that it will be. So expectations for Andy Dalton. I think in 2015, we saw that he was a quarterback that really reached his pinnacle. And when I say that he kind of cut down his interceptions. Things just all started to gel for him. But the only thing was he ended up getting hurt. And when I talk about the situation that he was around, he had a great coaching staff, a star-studded coaching staff that featured Hugh Jackson as his offense coordinator. Hugh really got the best out of Andy Dalton. He really has a good way of doing that, and that is exactly what he did in 2015 from that standpoint. And then you also look at the offense at that time. You had Jeremy Hill, you had Giovanni Bernard, you had Tyler Eifert, you had A.J. Green in his prime, you had Marvin Jones, Mohamed Sanu. This team was loaded. The team was super loaded. They had a decent offensive line. They still had Andrew Whitworth at the time. They had a good defense. And those were all indications that given the right circumstances, the right situation, Andy Dalton could win you games. Did they think that he could win a Super Bowl? It was kind of hard to tell because a lot of Bengals fans felt that the Bengals were supremely talented. They had a lot of talent around him. They had head coaches around him on staff as assistants, and that's just some perspective. So when he first got here, they had Mike Zimmer as a defensive coordinator. They had Jay Gruden as an offensive coordinator. They had Marvin Lewis. Those guys all went on to get head coaching jobs, and that's not to mention later when they also had Hugh Jackson. So at one point, they had about 4 guys that were essentially NFL level head coaches in the future, all on one staff. And they also had a very big accumulation of talent. But then there's also the other side of Andy Dalton. And I've had videos on my channel like this one. Exactly what Andy Dalton was today. That's exactly what he was. Hello, Andy Dalton. How are you doing today? Pretty good? Okay. Yeah, you and the offensive line together. That's both of you guys. And so there's 2 sides to me of Andy Dalton. There's a side of Andy Dalton where, yes, you can win football games with Andy Dalton. The Cowboys can go out there and lean on Ezekiel Elliott, lean on those good receivers to make sure that he's going to put you in a position to where you should win a game. The only thing is he's not going to be the type of quarterback that can win you the game. And I know what he did against the Giants, and that's cool. That's nothing against Andy. But when you get down by 2 scores, when it's 3 scores, like Andy Dalton isn't the guy that you can really lean on in the clutch to raise the level of the team. And so whereas when Dak was in a situation a few weeks ago when they got down by several scores and he was able to come back against the Browns, that's probably not going to happen with Andy Dalton. So the best thing that you can do is make sure that the line protects him. He has to have a good line. He has to have good receivers. You have to be ready for him to sometimes throw errant passes. It's part of it. Sometimes he underthrows guys. But if you have good receivers that can adjust and come back to the ball and adjust and make the right catches, then you should be good, which the Dallas Cowboys have. So that's actually a good situation for him to be in because you got CeeDee Lamb there, you got Amari Cooper, you got Michael Gallup, who are able to really adjust and make those catches. So that's something that's going in your favor. The only thing is sometimes he will have some interceptions when those errant passes are thrown. So you'll have to be ready to deal with that, and you have to have a strong defense. That is what worries me about the Cowboys is you don't really have a strong defense. So when you get into a game where you're having a shootout, Andy Dalton is not really the guy that you want to go into a shootout with. Now, when he's hot and when he's on and he's clicking, you're calling him the red rifle. But when he's off, he is off. I'm talking about super off. Like they started calling him, I think, the red water gun. So you got to know which kind of Andy Dalton that you're going to get. But given the coaching staff that you have there, given the coach that you have around him, I think on offense you should be good. But make sure that you make sure that he's supported with that run game, I think, in those receivers. And I think that you should be good. But be prepared that there could be some moments where he does turn the ball over. And we kind of saw that a little bit in the first game against the Giants. So will Andy Dalton be able to lead this Cowboys team to the playoffs? I think based off of the division, based with the NFC East right now really struggling, where you have the Redskins, you have the Giants. The Giants are one of the worst teams in football. So I can't really say that was a great victory for you guys. I mean, a win is a win, and in that division, you have to get it. But given the Giants, given the Eagles, I think that Andy Dalton, yes, can win you this division because you have enough talent around him. The only thing is if you're expecting Andy Dalton to go out and throw 4 to 5 touchdowns, that's not his game. Andy Dalton sometimes and majority of the times plays just good enough and not completely terrible. Like he'll get you 200 yards passing, he'll get you 2 or 3 touchdowns, but that's where it kind of ends. Like you're not really going to be expecting this guy to go out and have 400 and 500 yard games, 5 touchdowns. But I mean, it could happen with you guys, but we just never really got that. And I guess the big analogy that I will give for Andy Dalton is he's kind of to me like a Ford Fusion, right? A reliable car, looks good sometimes at night, but it's not a BMW. This is not luxury. And even if you get the best trim of it, right? You get the top of the class trim, it's still a Ford Fusion. Whether you get the nice speakers in it, whether you get the heated seats and all of that, it's still a Ford Fusion. So that was, from my perspective, the experience with Andy Dalton. He wasn't trash. He wasn't garbage. He did have, trash moments at certain points. Like in that game, I think that was a Ravens game where he just had a complete meltdown. And you can point to other games like the Cleveland Browns. I think it was a Thursday night football game. He struggles in big moments, very big moments. And we talk about primetime games. You talk about on the national stage. You talk about playoffs. The playoff Andy Dalton is the exact opposite of playoff Rondo for my Los Angeles Lakers. But playoff Andy Dalton has not been good. I think it's like 1 touchdown to like 5 or 6 interceptions. He had an interception that was returned for a touchdown that was thrown to J.J. Watt. We lost to T.J. Yates in the playoffs before. Like his playoff resume is not good. His regular season resume is somewhat decent, is pretty solid, and it's pretty good. And when you look back at his career with the Cincinnati Bengals, he was very successful. He did win us a lot of games. The only thing was they were regular season games. They weren't games that mattered in the playoffs. And as you guys know, the Cincinnati Bengals have not won a playoff game in a long time. And it was very frustrating watching those games because he would finish with 150 yards or something like that. And there would always be excuses here and there for him, whether you look at it as excuses or valid points. We're all kind of divided on that in Who Dey Nation. But I think you guys are going to allow this opportunity is really going to allow us to answer some of those questions. Was it on the coaching? Was it on the receivers? Was it on this and that? A lot of our fans were split on that. Andy Dalton was a huge debate among the Who Dey Nation. So, and it really is because Andy Dalton's a good guy. He's going to do stuff for the community. He's going to make sure that he makes an impact. He's a good guy. I mean, it's hard to kind of go against him. And I think anybody that really went against him, it had nothing to do with the type of person he was. It was just that we had kind of grown old to seeing the same kind of things happen. And really when this team started to suffer injuries to key players like AJ Green, Tyler Eifert, all of these guys, it really started to expose that those guys kind of made him look, in a sense, somewhat better than what he was, AJ Green especially. And so you're going to have him in a situation where he can have everything around him. And I think you guys have that. I worry about the defense, but I think that you guys have enough for him to at least take you guys to the playoffs. Now, if you get to the playoffs, I'm not sure if he has enough for you guys to go in and pull off a win or anything like that. But he will, I think, at bare minimum, with the team that you guys have, at least put you in a fight for the playoffs. Now, there is going to be games where he's going to look rough. It's going to be up and down. You're going to see a lot of that. But if you can protect him with that run game, if the receivers protect him, you should be able to make the playoffs. So I wanted to make this video to let you guys know what you should be expecting, realistic expectations, but that's what it is. Andy Dalton, Ford Fusion, Joseph Burrow, BMW. And it was that simple. That's why we moved on from him. I think that you will see a little bit of a drop-off, but not as much. Like, he's probably the best backup quarterback in the NFL. So you are in a good position because he is a guy that is smart, is able to read defenses, but will have some bad turnovers every now and then. Will have some errant passes that you will see there and be like, wow, what was that? But he can win, and you can win with them. So if you guys are interested in anything else that are browsing my gallery here of Bengals Andy Dalton videos, please feel free to do that. But I am Ace Boogie of New Stripe City. Thank you guys for tuning in. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And also check the comments. There will be Bengals fans keeping it real in the comments as well. There are some Dalton lovers. We like to call them Dalton lovers, and that's cool. That supported Andy because he was a good guy. He gave us a lot of success here in Cincinnati. And there's going to be some guys that are not as kind to him in the comments as well. So be sure to engage them and ask us any kind of questions that you have. But as I have said, I am Ace Boogie of New Stripe City, and I'm going to leave you guys with a who day all day, every day, especially on Sunday.
He gave his rookie-laden Bengals a high mark as they passed from the kindergarten of preseason to the first grade of regular league play.
Cincinnati's best came in the first quarter, the first time they had the ball. Quarterback Dewey Warren and fullback Tom Smiley combined for Cincinnati's first pass completion.
Bengal founder Paul Brown fashioned this novel design. As new to the game today as the forward pass was a century ago.
Montana dragged down at the 31-yard line.
In 1996, the Bengals finished strong and finished right.
Touchdown!
Yes! You tell you what, we're not worthy. We're not worthy. We got to bow to Corey Dillon.
Bulldog from the 32 with Mixon in the backfield. It's Dalton out to Mixon. He's got some room.
It's Mixon diving up and over.
We're gonna hammer home competition, preparation, and diligence in everything we do.
It's a new year, same old question. How do you stop 85?
They're looking down the field for the home run ball. It's 4.